Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast, a podcast all about the experience and memories that board games with friends and family create.
On this episode, we're going to talk about the board game Twilight Imperium and also games that we played this week. As always, your host, James Wilson.
Dan Regowitz.
And
Nathan Wilson.
And our special guest,
Peter Best.
Wow, we did it! One try. One try. We'll go ahead and start off this discussion with some of the new games that we played. Then we'll go off into the feature portion of the segment, Twilight Imperium. But let's go ahead and start. Has anyone played any new games?
I played a new game today.
What game?
It is called In the Hall, the Mountain King.
I have heard of this game.
Do you play classical music while you're playing it?
I was totally humming the theme, yeah.
Okay.
Ken was attempting the metal rock version. I felt that was equally appropriate. Me and my brother played it for the first time today. It took us a while because I had only read the rule book once. The game's actually got a lot of interesting bits in it. There's a tiling mechanism where you're placing tiles on the board to dig tunnels. Some spaces on the board that you can put tunnels over have resources on them. So you're sort of incentivized to get those extra resources for digging those tunnels. When you dig tunnels, you score victory points based on what materials you use to dig the tunnels. There's statues that you can uncover, and then you want to ship them to matching pedestals and or towards the center of the mountain for scoring opportunities. The theme of the game is you're all trolls, and you've returned to your ancestral mountain to try to restore it. And the thing that sold the game to me personally, it's called the Resource Cascade. So at the beginning of the game, you have like 4 trolls in a line. And when you recruit a new troll, you put it above 2 other trolls. And the troll you just placed and both trolls below it generate the resources that are pictured on their cards. Throughout the course of the game, you're making this pyramid and you're cascading these resources, but the resources go on those troll cards, so you sort of have to spend them before you can do it again. So there's a resource management wheel in there as well.
So what was your overall impression?
Well, we just played it once. We mutually agreed to give it another go, just because we don't know what we're doing, right? The scores were pretty darn close for our first game. Like, I ended on 99 and Ken beat me at like 105.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So like the score track, which only goes to 100, seems to measure out what a game should be, unless we learn the game at a new skill level and start hitting like 150 or something.
So, Peter, have you played any games recently?
Yeah, so I played 2 games that I had never played before. This past weekend, I played King Domino with a group of friends. I thought it was a fun, low-key domino-style game. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but I had a really good time. It was kind of the right speed for the group that I was with, and one that I feel like with the right group of people could get kind of interesting. The group that I was playing with was not like super cutthroat or anything, so I don't think everybody was really paying attention to what everybody else was trying to build with their tableau around their castle. But I think if you were, there's definitely some mechanics in there for sniping the right domino tile from somebody else, making it work for you. But I liked how easy it was to learn. Very basic rule structure and layout. Depending on what you're trying to do and how many points you're trying to get, has a little bit of complexity to it, but nothing too much.
Yeah, I really like that game a lot. Like when you're tired or at the end of the day, the tile placement and the tile drafting mechanisms on it can be really neat, especially when you try and get those extra bonus points at the end for making your perfect 5x5 grid.
Right.
And then also keeping your castle in the middle.
I was definitely not able to get my 5x5 grid through either of the 2 playthroughs that we did. But again, it was just very streamlined, very easy to understand. It's a good game to play maybe at the end of the day. You know, you're playing it for maybe 20 minutes, which was nice. It's got a nice short time frame for it, which I enjoyed. So it was fun being able to sit down with a group of friends and play through 2 settings of the game rather than just one. Because, you know, sometimes you get one of those longer games, you're only going to get through it once, and everybody's learning the rules, and by the time you finish it, you might feel comfortable, but then it's over, and you don't have time to play it again. This was nice because we got to play through it once, learn the game, and then go back and play through it a second time. So, and I won my first round, so I was happy about that.
If you flip the back of the tower, it actually gives you how many of each tile there are. So if you played enough, you actually will get those memorized. So then you start being like cutthroat.
Right.
And if that's okay with your group, they have an expansion that's really good called Age of Giants. It adds a 5th player. Works out perfect because there's dominoes. So you just put extras in your tower, but it's neat. So if you like interaction that you have with that game and you would a little bit more, Age of Giants is for you. If you think the player interact perfect in that game, since it's a light game,
Right.
don't get it.
Okay.
There's giant tiles, which you can hate draft people into getting. If they get the giant tile, they have to place a giant on one of their crowns.
Oh.
So in the game of King Domino, those are your points. And the only way they can get that giant off is a step tile that has all pictures of giant steps. And then you get to pick an opponent and give them the giant.
Okay. I think I would personally really enjoy that. I'm not sure if the group I was playing with the other day would, but I definitely would. I would probably try to find a group to test that out. I think I would like it.
Yeah, my daughters love it a lot.
Well, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So you had another game that you played too?
Yeah, so played King Domino, and then recently played Combo Fighter for the first time. Apparently not super easy to find. A lot of places selling out of it. I think it was a Kickstarter originally, but I was able to get one of their Versus pack. The base pack comes with 4 decks, but their Versus pack just comes with 2 decks. So for those who've not played it, it is a card-based game where you're playing 80s, 90s arcade-style fighter. Every deck is a very different style of play. Each deck has its own special abilities, but it's rock, paper, scissors. So blue beats yellow, but yellow beats red, but red beats blue, and whoever's card beats the other one then has the opportunity to continue to lay more cards on top of that if they have the right colors and shapes that combo with the first card they laid down. And so if you continue to be able to lay those down, then you can lay down special moves. And if you do that, of course, you get to do extra damage. And damage is in cards, because the first person who runs out of cards loses.
So it's like a deck depletion game.
Exactly. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. I just need more decks now, because the 2 decks that I have are good, but I want to be able to compare all the other decks. I want to be able to play all the different characters. I want to read their backstories, and I want to dive into it. But again, like I said, it's not been an easy one to get hold of. So I've got a friend who does a lot of traveling, and I said, okay, so whenever you go anywhere, be on the lookout for this. I'd like some more sets. So.
I never got to play that game. So maybe I'll have to play it with you one of these times.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring it over. I mean, super quick to learn, and again, play around in 10 minutes.
That's the other thing, too, that makes it nice. It ends real quick, so you can do another round.
Exactly.
It's one of those unique themes that nobody had really done much before, then suddenly there was like 5 of them all at once.
That's what I've heard. I heard there are a few other ones out there that are similar in style. I had heard really good things about Combo Fighter specifically as compared to the other ones. Everyone's saying that they really hit it on the head with that one. Like I said, I ended up getting the Versus pack straight from the retailer website because it was the only place I could find it.
I just looked up the other one, was Unmatched. Very similar.
The one character that I've played with the most in my combo is very difficult to play with because she doesn't actually cause damage. She's all about throwing other people's strength back at them. So you have to hit like the right combo.
Oh, that's cool.
If you do, it can do a ton of damage, but if you regularly just win card by card, she almost doesn't do any damage at all. But she does have a special mechanic. Because she doesn't do damage, it's harder to win with her. But if you do win 4 hands in a row, then you win the whole game.
It's really cool that they have those asymmetric decks, too, that are really different.
Right. Those are the couple that I've played most recently.
All right, Nathan, have you played anything new?
I've been in a bit of a dry spell lately. I haven't played too many new games. I guess the most recent game that I've played was one of those games that I got for under $10. I think I paid $8 for Apollo 13. You're managing the stress levels of the astronauts, you're managing the wear and tear on the shuttle, and you're managing mission control and the stress level there. But it plays out through set card decks that occur in stages. It's historically accurate. All the cards follow the actual events of the crisis. So it's actually kind of fun, but sticks very strongly to the actual history, and it is very much story-based. You can really only play it once because you kind of know everything that's going to happen after the first time you played it.
Makes sense. It actually looks really horrible, like the art.
The box art is meh. The card art is a lot of pictures, really.
Yeah, it looks like butt. It looks bad.
Yeah, it's clip art.
Yeah, I was just thinking someone stole from clip art. Like,
So, yeah, it's an $8 game. We enjoyed playing it. We actually played it twice. The first time we didn't succeed, so we played it once more and succeeded. And then we're done. But, for $8, I thought it was alright.
well, the tokens, your shuttle is like a third of the size of the Earth.
Yeah. Scale's a little off.
It might be neat. One-time play. It's a 6.4 rating.
It's not a bad game. It's just, replayability is just non-existent.
I just had to pick on you. So, Jim, did you play any games? Oh, yes, I did. Oh, thanks for asking.
Oh, that's why you asked us first, just so you can say what you'd play. Right.
So I played 2 simple games. Arboretum, which is a game where you draw 2 cards from a discard pile or the top of the library, and everyone's discard pile is separate. What you're trying to do in the game is you're trying to place down different species of trees, and you're trying to score points based on the longest run numerically. You get extra points if they're the same tree, and you just have to place a tree beside another tree that you've placed. But the trick of the game is the only way you score anything at all, you have to have the highest number, which they only go 1 through 8, of a type of tree to score that tree. So what will end up happening is, if I see Nathan is getting a lot of Jacariah trees, I might hold on to 6 and 7 of Jacariah so he can never score it. I'll score it, but I'll get 0 points. But he didn't get a whole bunch of points. And a lot of the game is trying to figure out, like, does the opponent actually have the cards you need to make sure you can score? If you do, you got to abandon your approach and do something else. At the end of the game, if you have a 1 and the other person has an 8 because they're holding on to 8, 1 actually gets rid of the 8. So that card's gone. And if you have the same number, everybody scores. Ties are friendly. It's an interesting game. It doesn't take very long to play. It's a mean game.
Yeah, mean's fun.
And it's nice because you're collecting all these little sets. And it actually does have a lot of player interaction because you're watching what they discard, what they put down on their tableau. They're watching what you're doing just to make sure you're not going to be mean to them.
Yeah, that sounds like a disconnect to me. You have this happy little tree game, except that it's this mean, take that fest.
If you have an Arboretum in real life and someone else does, you do everything you can to thwart them. Can't let you have a maple or Jacariah tree better than I do.
Absolutely.
100% real life.
Hey, nature is not always kind.
Exactly. Put some blight on your trees or something. I score better now.
The thing about this game is it is a very simple to learn game that when you start playing, it does seem light and easy. And after a couple rounds, it's like, oh, this is actually a lot of thought you can put on this, and it can be really nasty.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The last game that I played this week is Point Salad.
Oh, I tried that once.
Point salad?
Point salad is sometimes a derogatory term in board gaming, but basically a point salad game means that there is multiple different avenues of scoring points to the point of being maybe ridiculous.
Like every action you can perform scores you some number of points, so it's to the point where it becomes meaningless to pursue any one strategy almost.
But anyway, in Point Salad, what you're going to do is shuffle up a deck, and you have a row of 3 cards that have different scoring criteria, and you have a row of 6 cards which are vegetables. And simply all you do on your turn is you either grab 2 vegetables or a scoring card. Once per turn, you can take a scoring card you have and flip it to a vegetable, but you can never flip a vegetable to a scoring card. And that's it. At the end of the game, you take the scoring cards that you have in your row and you tally them up. The trick to the game is a lot of these high scoring ones have negative points for other type of vegetables. So while you're going through, you're trying to maximize the points you get. But what you really get down to is down towards the end of the game, when let's say there's a lot of cabbage out, your opponents are going to look at your scoring thing and see you get negative points for cabbage, and they're going to make sure you get 2 cabbage. It's not the end of the world for you, but I think what really makes it shine is it's so darn fast. It's like 15 minutes and it's over. It's when you're flying through it, it's really hard to make sure you're maximizing points. Plus, you also get nervous because you either didn't get enough vegetables or you didn't get enough point scoring cards. So people start making mistakes, but they'll just keep getting point scoring cards because they're like, I don't think I got enough of those things. But the game's really good. Unlike its name, most of our games winning scores were like 40, 45.
Oh, okay.
And everyone stayed in that area, so it wasn't like you had 4 million.
Right, yeah, it's not as crazy as I was thinking it was going to be.
No, we had like 1 or 2 lopsided games. Everyone else played so badly that they did really well. I don't know. I liked it a lot. I don't like the term filler game, but I think that would actually be a good filler game.
But I love games like that. I like games that I can just plop down, teach somebody in 5 seconds, play a game, and then get back to whatever lengthier game we want to play after that. Just something to kind of ease the brain a little bit.
Literally, when I got the game out, it took 10 seconds for me to explain the rules.
Nice.
Like, look at that card. That's how you get your points. You only have 2 real actions and 1 bonus.
Like I said, I only tried this once, but I thought it was pretty solid myself, too. There's a certain balancing point you have to take between the point cards and the vegetables. Like sometimes you take a point card and then try to get those vegetables, and sometimes you have a pile of vegetables and like, oh, this point card, I need this.
And then we had weird stuff happen in the game too. We had people that got like unusually fond of certain vegetables for no reason. So like every game they're like, all I want is tomatoes. I'm like, seriously? Not even looking at the points thing. They're just like, I want tomatoes. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
No.
You're grown adults.
That's right.
Pick different vegetables. One guy's like, I don't like eating bell peppers. I'm like, that has nothing to do with the game. All right. So did anyone else have any other games they want to talk about before we go launch into our main topic of discussion?
One other game that I did play this week that I forgot to mention was Unstable Unicorns.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right. How'd that go?
No, I really enjoy it.
All right. Podcast over. No kidding.
I've got a group of friends who like to play it quite a bit. They like it enough that I went ahead and purchased the Dragon expansion for it so that we can have some more cards next time we play. So we like it. Enjoyable game.
So how do you play Unstable Unicorns?
So Unstable Unicorns, you just have a decent-sized deck of cards, but the goal is that you want to have 7 unicorns in your stable to win the game, and everybody starts off with a few cards in their hand. I think it is 5, and on your turn, you can draw a card and play a card. Very basic mechanic there. One of your cards might be a unicorn that you put into your stable, but then there are also bonus cards that will benefit you or downgrade cards that you can put on somebody else's stable and it will hurt them, which allow you to draw more cards or take bonus actions. Most of the unicorns seem to be basic unicorns, which they don't really do anything special, but then there are magic unicorns that give you special abilities that allow you to do extra things before you take your regular turn of drawing a card and playing a card. So I found that it's fairly balanced. We went back and forth between people maybe getting up to 4 or 5 unicorns in their stable, and then everybody starts to freak out and immediately starts to play all the crap on that person so that they lose some of the unicorns out of their stable. And there's the mechanic of a nay card that you can play as a reaction to somebody else playing a really good card and try to stop them from playing their card. But if they have a nay card, they can lay it down and their original action stands, and then everybody else starts playing their nay cards, and eventually it just kind of goes crazy. I think with the right group of people who enjoy that type of game, it can be a fun 20 to 30 minutes.
I don't know that I could help myself from being like, nay, nay.
Right? And then there's one super nay in the deck. So you have the super nay, and it cannot be nayed.
All right, well, I'd have to scream it at that point.
Has anybody else actually played it?
I haven't played it.
Okay, I was going to say, from your reaction, James, I was like, oh, like everybody hates this game.
Oh, no, I'm just picking on it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I want to give you more guff because it tends to be associated with the kind of games like Munchkin and Exploding Kitten. I haven't actually played it. It'll be coming from a place of ignorance, really.
I've played Munchkin before. I've never played Exploding Kittens, but it is the same company that made Exploding Kittens. So maybe if you don't like Exploding Kittens, you might not like this either. But again, right group of people, and you'll probably have a good time.
Dan and Peter and I, along with some other friends, got to play Twilight Imperium. So Twilight Imperium, for anyone that doesn't know, is a epic galaxy-spanning 4X game where you need to play out a space opera where you're trying to use political intrigue, potentially some conquest, and follow different objectives to win the game. The game isn't won by exterminating someone else from the galaxy. The game is won by public and private objectives. This game, you need to complete the objectives to get up to 10 points to win. So there's a lot more to the game than just beating on each other. So if anyone doesn't know what 4X is, it's expansion.
Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
There you go.
You fiend! How dare you!
I know, my brain just went blank, and I was like, well, I'm butchering this explanation. I might as well butcher the definition of that. We're going to talk about the 4th edition. Nathan played the 3rd edition. I'm going to get the general idea of what people thought of the 4th edition and what Nathan thought of 3rd edition, and I can bridge the gap. In Twilight Imperium, there's very asymmetric races, so each player to play a different faction. The playstyle is somewhat dictated by the faction that you played. So what did you guys think of the faction you played.
Dan, how about you go first?
Okay, Pete actually had the more interesting ability. When I got to Table, there were only 2 spots left, and I could have played either humans, which James ended up playing, or this weird Borg-like race that could assimilate other people's land structures. My special ability didn't really come into play.
So you played the Lizic mindset.
What was their other special ability?
Well, you had assimilate. When you gain control of a planet, you can replace each of the PDS units, sort of like a global defense system, and a space dock with your own units. You can also do Haro, which after each round of combat, your ships in the active system may use bombardment ability. So basically in Twilight Imperium, when you move into a system, you do your space combat first, and then you do your ground combat. If some of the capital ships have bombardment, right before the ground combat starts, they can try to knock out some of the opponent's ground units. But their ability lets them do it every round of combat, which is really good.
Yeah, so like I bombarded maybe once or twice extra, and I only converted James's PDSs, I think, once during the whole game. It is what it is. I was not very aggressive militarily speaking until like the second half of the game, though. I was just trying to eke out my corner of the galaxy and collect some resources and chase a secret objective of mine, which I did end up getting. I have to say that the game's got a lot of table presence because each player has their own pile of plastic. Not quite enough to choke all the children in China, but close, I feel.
It was a lot of plastic, for sure.
Yes.
With some detail, too. Like, the fighters have to look like fighters. You have to be able to differentiate between your, 6 different ship types.
Yeah.
At least.
You have to know what's a carrier and what's a destroyer. And
There's 6 different ship types, and then you can eventually get the Warsaw, which is their like Death Star.
my other first impression from this game is that mechanically speaking, it is actually not that complex. It uses micro turns, and I use that term loosely because on your turn you like spend tokens to do something, but you can put that token on a hex and then move to that hex and or also produce from that hex. So like you could do multiple things with one action, but you just do the one action and then it's the next player's turn. It keeps on going around the table until everyone passes.
It's hard to get the basic concept of the game down, even though it's simple, because it's very nuancy. There's a lot of little things into it. Like that one action you can do, there's 5 steps that you potentially do. And some of them work out, and some of them you can do little tricky things with it. Like you can actually produce in an area that you just invaded. Since you converted the dock over to your own dock, technically producing is in one of the steps. So you could actually go through, complete space combat, and produce stuff, which is really weird, but it's in the things you can do.
If you use your action to move, that can become nuanced because if you walk into a space that's occupied by another player, you start combat, and combat is this long drawn out affair where you're taking turns chucking dice at each other until someone decides to give up or somebody dies. So that can take a little bit for sure. I didn't feel like the combats that I wasn't involved in was dead time to me because like what happened in that combat was relevant to like the shared game state. Plus, it's always cool when somebody's like, I'm going to roll for 5 fighters. I hit 5 times with my 5 fighters.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to impress on the description that I didn't do very well, is Twilight Imperium is all about what other people are doing. Because it's not all about combat, it's really about completing the objectives. So you're extremely invested in what other people are doing, even if that has nothing to do with you. Like, I want to know why you're attacking that planet. Because you could have a private objective that gives you points. You could be trying to prevent Peter from being able to get the 3 tech plants to do that, and I might want to help. Like, if you failed, I might want to swoop in there and finish.
Right.
It's just a lot of stuff in that. And the fact that the game isn't all about, I'm just going to wipe you out, it makes the game. One of the things I really liked about the game is it's the same as Twilight Imperium 3, but they streamline stuff. One of the things that I liked was that it made it clearer what you did on your turns. And the other thing that was really nice is they removed out the political phase, which you vote on stuff until someone actually controls Mechatol Rex. And it is a way that you potentially get a victory point per turn for holding.
When you had originally talked about how that was going to work, I thought that was going to be much easier for you to do but it was not. Like, you wanted to do it, but every time you just like, no, I can't make it work this turn.
I had a whole bunch of space monsters that were like, I'm going to take this place. And I'm like, no, I got to do other things so I can protect my little nest egg.
Yeah, in terms of combat aggression, the red player was definitely the most aggressive in terms of throwing ships, mostly at James, by the way. I was probably actually the second most aggressive because I tapped green early to claim a planet that I had my eyes on. And then I attacked James late because he had a huge area under his control. And well, he also had 2 planets that I needed to complete objectives in the same sector. So I had to attack that sector.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you had to. Absolutely.
Biggest thing that I had was ability where I had a capital ship that could hold a lot of fighters, like more than reasonable amount of fighters. And then I beefed up my advancement on my fighters. So my fighters were dangerous. And the red opponent would bring in the capital ship, but without any protection. He never was able to effectively get rid of my fighter wall. So I was taking out war sons, and I held that thing till the end. It didn't do any good, but I held it.
Yeah, I got one more thought. And that is the objective system basically makes this game.
Yes.
Because the objective system is what enables the politicking to happen. That's what allows me to take this sector now so that I can just score that objective, and then I don't have to be there anymore. So I can let you take it back after I vacate my ships, and we can be best buds, right?
And there was a lot of like, please don't kill me. But I need this. Please don't kill me. I know one of the people playing with me took one of my planets and was begging me not to like roll them over half the game. That was not Dan.
And it was not me.
So Peter played the Universities of Jolin.
That's correct. The Universities of Jolin, the fish folk in space suits that are like almost like fish bowls. I don't know. It was interesting. I really, really liked this faction. And yes, everybody, it pays to show up to game night first because you get to choose your choice of faction. But no, I really like the faction quite a bit. They lean towards the technologies of the game, which again, not even really knowing that about the game and knowing how helpful the technologies are, I was really glad that I chose this for my first faction to ever play Twilight Imperium, because I got to start the game with a whole bunch of technologies that everybody else had to spend time gaining. The downside to this one is every time I was rolling in combat, I had to apply a -1 to my rolls in combat, but I think the technology aspect more than outweighed that bit because I really didn't do a whole lot of combat. I think I had maybe like 2 combats in the game, and that was about it. I mostly just kind of stayed off in my area, did my best to complete the objectives and my secret objective. And other than that, I think it was okay. I really liked my special ability was that I could spend a command token to complete the primary objective technology rather than the secondary, which I thought was super helpful. And then to ignore one prerequisite for the technology unless it was a unit upgrade. That kind of sunk because the unit upgrade I still had to make sure to have everything for it. But the game itself, I'm with Dan. I mean, the objectives make the game. It's not like you have to get in there and hold everything the whole time. It makes you think a little bit of Risk as you're going around the map. But unlike Risk, where you pretty much have to take over the whole world, you're just going in there long enough, you're having combat, and then you're strategically moving out of the space again, making room for other people.
One of the main mechanisms in Twilight Imperium is a Puerto Rico style like role selection. There's 8 different roles you can select, and if you select a role, you get to do a primary ability. Everyone else can potentially follow with a secondary ability. The primary ability is generally better than the secondary ability, but it's really cool because it invests other people in when they take their strategic action. And then there's a lot of planning that if someone picks a role they want to follow. So you only have a limited amount of action spent based on your lot for the round. I really did like your race. I thought that was really cool. I got to play the humans.
Aww.
I know. I was like, all these cool races, I did them randomly. Like, I put them out and like, dang, humans.
And I almost went with the humans, though, because, as we found out, there are a ton of them.
They reproduce like crazy. Like, I make ground units crazily. They're super ground things, and they're good at fighters.
Just crap tons of fighters and ground troops. That's what he did. Yeah, that's what he did.
That's what I did. Now, I will say that Peter is right. Those objectives make the game, and that you don't need to go out and conquer places. I 100% believe that I lost the game because I held on to Mechatol Rex and wouldn't let it go.
Right, you were very focused on it for sure.
Yeah, I could have just took my extra points from going into Mechatol Rex and left. What do I care? Let other people fight it. Probably left some token thing there so people lost some stuff trying to take it.
Pete ended the game at 9 points. The green player won. I ended at 6, I believe. James, what did you end at?
I ended up at 7. One of the interesting parts of the game is a political phase. When someone spends influence and lands the first ground troop on Mechatol Rex, people are allowed to vote on new laws and agendas. So what did you guys think of that part?
I'm going to jump in here. For my first playthrough, this was my least favorite part. I think I could enjoy it more, but I think we played it pretty loose. One, trying to read what it is that we were voting on and figuring out what yes or no meant. It took me a little bit at first. But beyond that, I think everyone has to say yes or no and like write it down and stick with it, because I felt like we had a lot of people like changing their minds halfway through the vote, and so it was kind of hard to know for sure what people were actually voting for until everyone was like, oh sure, okay, I'll vote for that instead of what I was going to do. I think treating it more like when it gets to your turn, you vote and that is it, and you can't change that.
Yes. I think the speaker needs to be the moderator.
If I remember correctly, I think we played with the speaker voting first. I was watching some videos afterwards. Is the speaker actually supposed to vote last?
Yeah, I believe the speaker's supposed to vote last, and also the speaker breaks ties. Some of them require select a player first, then vote.
There might be ways to like tighten that part of the game up a little bit. But again, with a lot of us being our first time playing through it, I think it was understandable. It seems to be kind of a complex part of the game, and it was a little harder to understand, and so we were all playing a little bit more loosely with it. So that's probably why, for my first playthrough, that was my least favorite part of the game. And that, again, it's not that I didn't like that part of the game. I like it. I just think it can be better through a second run through.
And this has happened to me in other games that include like a negotiation element. Oftentimes, people who have only played it once or a few times don't get into the negotiation aspect because they're learning all the other rules. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that might have impeded that phase of the game. I also felt like it was really awkward. Do we say what we intend before we commit votes? Do we commit votes, then say what we intend, and then negotiate? What's the order of operations here?
Right.
And that's where the moderation can help.
Yeah, for sure.
You could go around the table and be like, well, how do you feel about this? Before you even talk about votes or, anything else.
And you can make promises and you can try to incentivize people to not vote a certain way.
Yeah, and then when the vote actually happens, then you could totally change your vote from what you said it was going to be, but now you're voting.
Right.
Like, you've told everybody during the moderation phase, like, oh, yeah, I'm totally going to do this, and then it gets down to the vote, and you're the last vote, and you're like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. It could definitely be fun. I'm with you guys with it being moderated a little bit more, but giving a chance for everybody to talk and then go through the actual vote. I think we felt more like we just needed to vote and keep it going.
Yeah, I also don't want the phase to be bogged down with like tons of negotiation either. It should remain relatively quick. Like everybody just gives their basic feeling on how they're going to land. Maybe somebody proposes a deal and it's confirmed or denied, and then like you all actually commit your planets or whatever resources you're using to create your votes, and at that point in time, that's when you actually vote, when you're generating the resources.
All right, so who's going to bring the Robert's Rules of Orders the next time we play this?
There we go. Next time we play, I'm definitely going to pay like more attention to the political phase stuff, and then if it's still not quite where we think,
we can do house rules to make it work.
I have dry erase boards. Just put the name of who you're voting for, and then say your vote numbers, and then you flip over who you voted for.
Oh, okay.
So we can do cool stuff. We can make it really cool. I bet you there's some stuff I did do right, because that is in the end of the rule book.
And there's a lot of rule book before that, so.
I made special attention to make sure that I did the turn phases correctly, battles correctly, and the strategy phase correctly. So I spent all my time focusing on that, and the political phase looked simple.
You still got like 90% of the game. When it all said and done, the last like week since we've played, I have thought about this game a lot, and I want to play it again.
See, that's a mark of an awesome game.
Right, I agree.
So we completely left Nathan out. So Nathan...
So how was 3rd edition?
Yeah, what did you think of 3rd edition?
It's been like 2 years since I played it. I've only got to play it the once. My memory is a little hazy, but the fact that I can remember it all is pretty telling that it's a good game. I believe I was playing a race similar to Peter's, where it's a tech-based. And I was definitely trying to hide in my corner, trying not to attract too much attention, but making sure I had enough an army to discourage people from attacking me. But one of the things that's really cool about the game that I was really able to play on was it does somewhat discourage people from being too aggressive, because it's a game about negotiation and opportunism. So if somebody attacks somebody else, there's going to be somebody that's going to jump in afterwards and clean up, and actually they're going to benefit the most. In that way, discourages being too aggressive and too cruel to people.
I think it's true of the game we played as well, because the red player attacking James in the center of the map totally is what allowed me to sneak around the back and take that sector.
Yeah.
For sure.
Twilight Imperium, I love the fact that it's all about betrayal. Like, you gotta betray people. And it hurts. Because I'm like, why are you attacking me, Space Bunny? Why are you doing this? And you're like, I'm not doing anything but taking your stuff.
It's odd, too, because sometimes those attacks can result in a new norm. Early in the game, I attacked the green player to gain control of a type of planet that I needed for a private objective that I didn't score until much later when I attacked James. But, like, I attacked that sector, got control of one of the 2 planets in that sector, and, like, I just left the other planet alone because we realized that there were bigger fish to fry.
Now, I always say that was super brave, because that one was the race that gets +1 on all the rolls, and they can make tons of stuff. So I was surprised he didn't be like, all right, war.
He could have roasted my bottom, and he didn't. That's why he's won.
Yeah, he did win the game. But yeah, he has a warlike race. And Dan was like, I'll take this little planet right here. I'm like, all right, good. You're going to start getting attacked. And then nothing happened. And I was like, what?
Yeah, one of the cool things about the secret objective, it really plays into the player interaction, because you could have a little planet off in the middle over that you're actually trying to get to, and somebody happens to land one ship there. It's like, then you have to figure out, do you want to negotiate and convince them to leave that planet? But that will give away the fact that you need that planet. Or you could just stay quiet, and they may just leave that planet because they might not care about that planet.
Right. That's how the objectives work. They get the planet for a turn, they claim their point, and then they don't need it anymore.
Unless it's a public objective, and then I'll hold on to that planet so you can't get it.
I still remember the way that my game ended. I was at a point where, for most of the game, people were ignoring me, and I was able to do what I needed to do. But I just had to get one more thing, and I couldn't do that without everybody realizing I was about to win the game. And then I just had to hold it for a certain amount of time. But meanwhile, all 3 players attacking me because they knew I was about to win. And I just had to survive the onslaught of 3 players attacking me for 2 rounds.
There's nothing better than the wholesale extermination of a race. Just to be like, they're going to win. Well, we're just going to exterminate them now. And having all the other players get together and try to exterminate that race. And the fact that you could just do the Hail Mary and you're like, all right, I can still win this with my 2 guys left and my 1 planet. Lost the home world, don't care.
Yeah, I think I ended up with like 3 ships left on 1 planet.
I think I remember that came down to a die roll where you could survive barely.
Yep, pretty much.
In our game, everyone was at like 4 or 5 points and then just explosively the game.
Oh yeah, there's definitely times where people can get tons of points in a single turn, and there might be nothing happening for a little while, then it's just like suddenly everything's happening all at once.
I think Moffat went from 6 to 10 in 1 turn.
It's interesting because that's like part of the arc of the game, right? There's 10 objective cards face down at the beginning of the game. You reveal 2 to start off with. You reveal 1 at turn after that. So for the first 3 turns, you're revealing 3 more objectives that are each worth 1 a pop. So like the victory point game in the first couple turns is going to be slow and meandering because there's not that many objectives available and they're only all worth 1 point. But when you hit the 6th objective, they get to be a little bit more difficult, and they're now worth 2 points a shot. So that ramps it up. The game arc is sort of built into those objective cards, and it follows it pretty closely. I don't think if a 2 victory point objective card was available turn 1, any would be able to complete it before turn 5.
So you can really tell they went through 4 editions of the game. You can tell through the artwork and the iterations of the game pieces and basic production quality and how they shored up all the different races. One of the things that I really appreciate with it is that they took the political phase and they made it so that it doesn't occur until you take Mechatol Rex. In previous versions, you jump right into that political phase every round. So it's really nice that you can get established before rules and laws that come into effect to change the game.
Yeah, it keeps the game simple near the beginning, and it also allows people to like feel each other out, determine who their enemies and who their allies are based on like board position and whatnot. So makes a certain amount of sense to me.
Now, Twilight Imperium is definitely one of my favorite games, so I will hold on 3 and 4 until 5 comes out.
Do you think that'll happen ever?
No, Christian Peterson is one of the designers, the one that founded Fantasy Flight Games. Fantasy Flight Games got bought by Asmodee, and Christian Peterson then left Fantasy Flight. Unless other new designers are going to be picking it up, it's probably not. But needless to say, if there was, especially the Kickstarter that with all the pieces,
Can the game get more pieces?
I don't know. But I will say, second and first edition have problems. Third edition's not perfect, but for less than half the price of fourth edition, if I recommended it, buy Twilight Imperium, it would be third edition. Now, I'm a special case because of how much I love it, but if someone had to pick, I'd say there's not enough differences between third and fourth.
I will go on record and say that this is a good one. That being with only one play under my belt. It didn't consume me like Peter did. I did think about it like the next 24 to 48 hours off and on, but most of my analysis has been right here.
It totally consumes me. I love this game so much.
Yeah, I'm ready to play tomorrow.
And I would be up for that, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically. We will 100% be under 5 hours.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
That's the other thing, folks. It took us a little bit more than 5 hours with some rules explanation at the beginning. So put that in your noggin.
Also, a really cool thing with Twilight Imperium 4th edition is they put all the races from the expansions in there.
They also added a lot of modules in. One of the modules is, instead of 10 points, we can play at 14 points.
Whoa.
Someday. There's another variant. It actually recommends not playing with until you get an experienced group. So I didn't put them in, but you get 4 promissory notes, and you can do that to help get your political position better or military position better by saying, hey, don't take this planet, I'll give you this promissory note. So it adds into the negotiation.
I'm looking at the one for, I call it my race now, the Universities of Jolin, and this is like pretty nice. Like I would think you would definitely get an ally out of it because it says here that after I research a technology,
Yes.
you also get that technology.
And I think next time we play, it wouldn't be that much to add that in there. One of the nasty things about the promissory note is say you trade that to Dan. Dan can take your promissory note and trade it to me.
Oh, really?
You make friends, but those friends can double cross you and hand them to your enemies, and you're off the creek without a paddle.
Or you could give Dan that promissory note knowing that I might want to extort him. So there's also that, because that is a super nice promissory note. Be like, hey, I got a fleet here. I could roll over some of your tasty planets, or you can give me that promissory note. Get another game night going. Hopefully we can get one with Nathan when he comes down. I will make Nathan sad now. I think that this editing of this podcast is going to be beyond my techniques.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.